I'm Mr. Rosansky, and this is a speedrun of practice test for the second module, the C module, the harder one. So let's get straight to the first conventions question. Click all the way to the first one that pops up to us, and we're in the conventions questions. This is a transition question, so I'm going to first check to see if I have a complete sentence on either side of this, and I absolutely do. It does is my subject and verb to the left of my semicolon, and arachnid seems is the one to the right. So I've got a complete sentence on either side, so I can kill two of these guys. Then I consider where my contrast is. C is awkward because if the contrast would here, it'd be at the start and there's, well, nothing before it. So we've got to land on D for this one. I seem to be in this conventions questions have some verbs, so I consider number first. I've got singular, 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 both singular. So I shift on to tense. I've got the present, the future, and the past. So I go looking for clues, hoping it's not the present. As I'm reading, I see a past participle there, so I skip past that and I see a made, which is in the past to past, and then I'm done with that. I'm in the conventions question. I see that there seems to be a coordinating conjunction, a period, a comma, and a space. So I'm going to bias this as the complete sentence mix-up. So I'm going to go looking for complete sentences on either side. I have a clipper ship entered, a complete sentence to the left of this. Then if I were to pick a having all the way through, I've got, wow, another subject and verb over here. The celebrated ship set. Two complete sentences can't be joined by any of that nonsense. So I pick that and move on. Another verb question. So I'm going to go singular, plural, plural, and plural. As for the numbers, I'm going to bias the has enhanced, but go looking for the subject, read over this bridge, find the title of a work, therefore singular, pick it and move on. In this conventions question, I'm going to check what I've got because I see another complete sentence mix-up possibility. I see a period, a lone comma, a coordinating conjunction, and I see a space. I'm going to bias the complete sentence and go looking to see if that's what I've got. To the left, I do have a subject and a verb over here. Subject being the name, traveled is my verb. And then after the past participle of built, I've got these chambers seen, two complete sentences, can't be joined by those things. I'm in the conventions question. I see this as a name title question. So I'm not going to break up that with anything, right? Nothing goes in here. This falls because there's no a, an, or the right there. So those two fall. Then it's either C or D. C is separating the verb that tells me when from the subject, and that is distasteful. So I pick it and move on. I'm in the conventions question again. I see just semicolons coming or going. I looked at the text. This semicolon and an and pop out to me. There's no other semicolon, so I need a very simple list going on. Both of these fall. Then I consider what is both native and non-native. The fostering scientific research certainly isn't, is the plant species. Therefore, I've got to glue those sucker together. On to the transition questions. I go reading. He did some conquering of the ancient world, seems to be an important context clue on the left side of this. Then I see a today, which is contrasting the context clue from the previous one, mainly remembered. I love the contrast that I have present. I could use my sentence template of although he conquered in the ancient world, today he is a code dude. Typing's not too clean today, but we'll speed it up. Transition question. I go looking to the previous sentence. I see she places Thomas, journeys within the context of the Great Migration. In the next one, I've got Dove, who's Dove, she, both the same person. We've got the same person setting events of a different person against the civil rights movement. These are different things, but they're not the contrasting kind of differences that are here. This isn't a concession that one exists despite the other one. We don't have a cause and effect. It's not the same thing, so it's not a specific example of. I've got similarly, this is similar to this, and it supports the overarching claim here. I've got another transition question. I see typically just pops out at me as having done tons of these questions. I'm looking for something that is a result or a contrast of this typical. As I move forward, I see that she had a factory reproduce it, which is contrasting the typical nature of how she would do these things. The final question is going to be a notes question. I'm going to make and support a generalization about the orbits of comets. Astronomers estimate the number of comets orbiting the sun is in the billions. The comet's orbit may change over time. I am not this. Neither of these. Whichever one is a generalization. Maybe these are just two generalizations. Nothing is a support for a generalization, though. 8 falls. Billions of comets orbit the sun. Seems like a generalization, but I don't see the planets as a strong support for the generalization of billions. That doesn't really track for me. One example of a comet is this thing here, whose orbit around the sun once lay here, but is now. This is giving me the orbit of a specific comet, not a generalization about the orbit of comets and then support for that. I'm hoping that D gives me something beautiful. A comet orbiting the sun may change over time. That seems like a good generalization. And then as I read through to see if there's going to be some support for that, it uses a singular comet to support that generalization. And that is a beautiful thing. On to the first vocabulary question. I look for signal elements. I immediately see one for such that's going to bounce me backwards. As I go looking backwards for something there, I see while harmless, which is going to be my context clue, land me on innocuous, and then I move forward. As I look for a signal element, I don't see any on that side, and I go looking to the left. Land one on, though there have been many studies, is going to be my context clue, contrasting the many as few, paucity. Click it and move on. Another word choice question. I go looking for a context clue or a signal element. I've got a therefore here that's popping out at me. Its trajectory was shaped by the questions of legitimacy and therefore cannot be understood without corollary understanding of the factors that allowed him to defend, buttress his right to the throne. In this question, I'm looking for another signal element. I don't see anything there. Don't see anything there. Oh, this is just like the one in the easier section. It can inspire ones to act as my context clue. Foster is going to be the answer. Underlined sentence. So I'm going to start reading the underlined sentence, and it is this that I'm going to fight my fights for first on this right side. The trees, like people, have their individual characters. Some were ready to yield up their lifeblood, while others were more reluctant. As I start looking into the offers, it's not that the women were being betrayed. It's this weird description of trees. Foregrounds the beneficial relationship. I hate this notion of beneficial. The trees are getting got, wounded, giving up their juice. I don't think that's beneficial. It demonstrates how human behavior can be influenced by the natural environment. I don't know what the human behavior is that would be influenced, and I'm hoping I'm liking D. It elaborates on the aspect of an aspect of the maple trees that the women evaluate, their ability to give up the souse. I like it. I move on. The main purpose of this text. I've got a colon that's exemplifying the thing before it, and then this is a semicolon and, so we're going to have to take a journey through this entire thing here, is what it seems to be. We're going on our business. Tranquilly, that word, but, contrast. Ever is a signal element. Ever, anon, vague suggestions kept wandering across my brains of reasons why I should quit. Tranquility. Then there's some negativity here that seems to be juxtaposed. And I get involuntarily framing advertisements and polling conjectures about this. These thoughts I do not think to check. They might germinate and bear fruit if they could. To convey a contrast between, I like this, I've got outward calmness with the word tranquilly and internal restlessness, all of this turbulent ideas existing in him. But I'll read the other ones just in case. Loyalty to, no, this person's having mad doubts about this. I wouldn't say I'm a loyal person because I'm eyeing up everybody that I see. That would be terrible. It finds it both challenging and deeply fulfilling. I've got nothing for the deeply fulfilling. And to describe her determination to secure, she is not doing that. She's kind of swallowing the thoughts. That might be the next step, though. I'm looking for the structure of the text. So something that I can start doing is read a sentence, type a sentence. She, as a painter too, makes her album art. For the cover of her album, for a specific album, she did something resembling Van Gogh. The next sentence, the image calls attention to the album's type of song in which she sings about the legacy of the post-impressionist painter. Image is like the titular song. In that song, more of that song, more of that song. So I can go through and start interacting with what's on the left. It presents a claim about Mitchell. Gives an example supporting that claim. Seems to do something like that. It discusses Van Gogh's influence on Mitchell, then considers Mitchell's influence on other artists. It doesn't do that second part of the requirement, even if it does the first. As I read C, it describes a similarity between the two artists, then notes a difference between them. I don't remember Summarizing a difference, it describes the songs on Turbulent Indigo. It kind of does the second thing, but not songs. We just have that one, right? Titular song. A has got to be the right answer. I don't think I selected anything there. I keep reading. Function of the underlined sentence. So I'll read this underlined sentence. Using data spanning from this 16-year range for a set of U.S. companies, the team compared over 29,000 annual earnings forecasts to the actual earnings later reported by those companies. I didn't get anything about results from that reading. It seemed to be like what they did to present a specific example that illustrates the study's findings. Still, this is what they did to get to the findings, not the findings themselves. I love this notion of methodology. I would actually pick this and move on. To call out a challenge, no. There was nothing that was a problem, right? This is what they did. On to the next question. Text 2 most likely say about text 1's characterization of the discovery involving EGR. So I'm going to read this and give it a little summarizey poo. When this person, SR, and team reported about liking which possessed a gene, it caused excitement. However, they were like dogs. Chill. It's different. Sarah found a gene, but said chill. She said chill. She said chill. She said chill because we don't know if the function is the same. Gorgeous. So that's what she's saying. SR found a gene, but she said chill, players. We don't know if it functions the same. Then we're going to see how text 1 seems to characterize this. Most animals can regenerate parts of the body such as skin, but when a 3-body is cut into pieces, they regrow things. Researchers are investigating this feat partly to learn more about humans compared to they're making exciting progress and especially promising discoveries that both humans and pantherworms have a gene. They would say chill. They would say relax, right? Though this might be the case, you've got to chill. I feel very comfortable in the text on the left, so I'm going to engage with the right. It is reasonable, given that the team had identified how, they did not identify how it functions, right? That was still a question here. It is overly optimistic, given additional, yes, overly optimistic, because they have no idea how it works. It is unexpected. It is unexpected, given that we're generally met with enthusiasm. No. The S team threw down on themselves. It's unfairly dismissive. No. S1 is highly hyped about it. It's saying this. B and D kind of inverted. I've got this example to complete, so then I start reading. I've got a for example, so it's going to kick me back a sentence, so I might as well read that too. So many films and associated records for this era have been lost that counts of those 4 figures output should be taken as bare minimums rather than totals. It's entirely possible. How bizarre. I haven't seen a graph question like this, but this seems to be presenting that the thing that we're going to choose is a liar, as we want something about bare minimums rather than totals. But let's just engage with it the way that we've been doing. Dark Cloud acted in significantly fewer films than this person with 66. That's true, so that survives. We'll say that that's true. Edmund Currie's 47 credited acting roles include only films made after 1934. That seems to be a liar. This says that Lillian Saint did 66, far more than 66, and Edwin Carew directed more than 58. That seems to be a liar, so we'd kill it. James Young Deere actually directed 33 films and acted only in 10. That seems to be a flip of this and a liar. But remember, when we read the sentence, what we're trying to exemplify is saying that we lost numbers. So the inverse is true. The liars come back on the table, and that's what we need to explore. So it's saying that that numbers were lost, and this language of like far more is absolutely gorgeous. This is a different when. It wasn't saying that the record dates were screwed up, so that falls. And this is saying that there would have been like a mishap in how they were recorded, but that's not true. What an interesting little graph question he is. We've got some claim questions. Let's go find this crew's claim. They claim that endothermy would have enabled mosasaurs to include relatively cold polar waters in their range. So this is their belief. Endos could make them hang out in the chill weather. To support this claim, I would want bones in cold places, I guess, would be it. I don't have a signal element keeping me back, so I'm going to try to fight this with my basic understanding of endothermy. I'm going to try to just go for it. So I start reading what's over here on the right. Mosasaurs like body are easy to determine from tooth enamel. Tooth enamel? I don't know what that's coming from. Then the body temperatures of this is. I don't understand this. More are easier to determine from tooth and enamel than. This comparison, this notion of tooth and enamel doesn't really seem to support anything. I'm looking for something about them like hanging out in the cold. I go on to B. Fossils of both mosasaurs and non-endothermic reptiles might have been found in roughly equal numbers in regions known to be near the poles, though in lower concentration. No. If they're both found in the cold places, then it doesn't mean that they're able to hang out in chill weather, right? Anybody can hang out there. There must have been something else on the table. Several fossils have been found in regions known to be near the poles, while relatively few fossils of non. This is exactly it, right? If they didn't have the special powers, then they couldn't hang out there. We'll read this during the late Cretaceous. Seawater temperatures more likely throughout. No, get out of my face. Another graph question. We'll bump out one zoom so that we can see everything there. We're supporting the researcher's conclusion. Absolutely cruising through this one. Support the researcher's conclusion. Let's find it. According to researchers, this suggests that across the years analyzed, there was a growing interest among CEOs in connecting with more departments in their companies. Looking at A to C for a liar, the average numbers of managers and department leaders reporting directly to their CEOs did not fluctuate from this. Whoa, highlighting up. That's pretty sick. Fluctuate from the 1991 to the 2001 period. It absolutely did change. The average number of, that's a liar, the average number of managers reporting directly to CEO was highest in 1961. None of these numbers were the highest. Get out of my face. The average number of department leaders reporting directly to their CEOs was greater than the average number of managers reporting directly to their CEOs in each of the 3 periods studied. Department leaders reporting directly to their CEOs was higher than managers in each one. That's true. When I read D, the average number of department leaders reporting directly to their CEO rose over the 3 periods studied. That's true. Now we have to see which one of these aligns with the statement. We want to prove that there is a growing interest with CEOs connecting. And the way that we would prove this with this language here, the average number of reporting directly to the rose over. D is going to be the right answer because the language of this is supported by the chart and it supports the conclusion that we're trying to advance as demanded by the question. Though C does make a claim that is true supported by the chart, the language of this does not convey with 100% assurity that there was interest, growing interest, because theoretically, you're going to answer a lot of graph questions this way, even some logically complete the text questions. Theoretically, this could be in a different relationship. It could be going down, but this trend could still be true. So it needs both the support of the language within and the chart, which is why I like this little process of liars first. Pick it and move on. We want to weaken some astronomers' claim. Ooh, big deal with the weekend. So we start looking for the claim. This idea is also supported. Well, what's the first support? Oh, astronomers have posited host stars and their planets are composed of the same material with blah, 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 blah. So let's start noting that. Host stars are the same material as their planets. I know that wasn't much of a summary, but I think finding it was the hard part probably for this one. Planets have equal or smaller stuffs. So if I'm trying to weaken this claim, I would try to show that different materials or planets having more, both of these things working together would destroy the astronomer's claims, so I can go looking with a fair understanding of what's been said. A says most stars are made of hydrogen and helium, and when cooled, they are revealed to contain small amounts of iron and silicate. As I skim this, I have no information of what the planets are made of, so this is just focusing on stars. I don't see how that would do anything I want. A nearby host star is observed to contain the same proportion of hydrogen and helium as that is the sun. The astronomers' claim is a relationship between stars and their planets, not between host stars. B false. C, evidence emerges that the amount of iron in some rocky planets is considerably higher than the amount in their host star. That's it, right? We wanted equal or smaller stuff. This is refuting that, so more stuff. The second part of my argument seems to be supported. Let's take a peek-poo at D because we have a world of time. The method for determining the composition of rocky planets is discovered to be less effective when used to analyze other kinds of planets. I don't know about why the methodology would be on blast here. Pick it, move on. We're trying to support a journalist's claim. I said pick it and move on. We're trying to support a journalist's claim. Let's find that journalist's claim. Good. According to an arts journalist, doesn't even get a name here. Later in his career as a renowned curator, this guy sought to remedy this deficiency by not focusing solely on modern African artists, but by showing how their work fits into the larger context of global modern art and history. We want a focus on global modern art and art history, not just the modern African artists. So we can start looking at the items with a decent understanding of what the journalist's claim seems to be. As I read through this is all overwhelming, but then I get to the part of the item that seems to matter. One of the largest art exhibitions devoted to a black artist in Europe history. This is a record set, sure, within Europe's history, but it's devoted just to a black artist. This does not convey what we want, is to place African art among this huge scale. So A falls. As I read B, it has very similar to that first part of the last one, a bunch of statements, but now we got works by African artists with major figures of other countries. I really like what that's engaging with, right? This is showing this person connecting with global modern art. We've got the US and we've got Mexico, and I like it so far, but I'll check the other ones. This is all just overwhelming, just like the other ones, so we read past it. African movements for independence from European colonial powers following the Second World War profoundly influenced work by African artists of the period. This is still Africa within Africa, though, and that's a wonderful thing, but it's not what we're looking for. A and C are making the same mistake where, sure, Africa exists in the scope of the world, but we're trying to see that interaction with the rest of the world beyond just African history, and that's what these do a great job with. And as I look at D, that's just like the other ones, but to demonstrate the broad range of Africans have to approach. This is again, A, C, and D are trying to get us to be confused as to what it means by global modern art, which is just tapping in with other artists that have nothing to do with that place. Pick it and move on. 2 questions left. We've got a little sense right here. Let's try to fight our fight in this final sentence for this logically complete the text question. Give me something to highlight. Thank you very much. Because no control over who wins, researchers, I don't know, let's start looking. They have no control over who wins. Researchers struggle to find valid data about the behavior of politicians who do not currently hold office. If people are struggling to have control over who wins, I don't know why they would struggle to find valid data about how politicians who don't control office. That has nothing to do with the ability to control over who wins or not. Because no control over who wins, researchers can only conduct valid studies with people who have previously held office rather than people who presently hold office. No, they could just go and once again, I don't understand how this engages with the concept of no control over who wins. That can fall. I am getting a little afraid, though, if all of these just fall from this concept, because then I'm going to have to read more. Should select a control group of people who differ from office holders in several significant ways. No, whatever I'm trying to prove, I don't know why a control that's very different in significant ways to do. This just seems to be a flaw in methodology. And then hopefully D works. I'm getting a little afraid here. Because no control over who wins, researchers will find it difficult to identify a group of people who can function as an appropriate control group for the studies. That looks gorgeous. I can't control who wins. So what if I start tracking groups of people that don't end up being successful? I really like what D offers here. And I'm going to pick it and move on. I'm on my final question in this exam. Let's do the same way. Logically complete the text. Let's go for the final sentence. Some scholars have concluded. I've got a thus, which kicks me back. 1 sentence. So let's set up our frame. Because some poems reference Spain during this time, then we can start going through it. Because some poems reference Spain during this time, while its content largely predates the invasion, it also contains additions made after the invasion. All right. Because some poems reference Spain during this time, that seems to make sense. Because some poems reference Spain during this time, although those who compiled it were fluent in this language, they had limited knowledge of the Spanish language. I don't understand how someone who compiled this thing being fluent in the language would have limited knowledge in this language would have anything to do with the concept that we're trying to advance here. Before the invasion by Spain, the poets of the Aztec Empire borrowed from the literary traditions because some poems reference. I like A and C right now. Remind me of the classic mix-up in these logically complete the text questions where they're trying to mess with some sort of complicated sequence. I'm going to leave A and C on the table and I'll come back to it. Looking at D, the reference to the beliefs and customs in Spain should be attributed to a coincidental resemblance between the societies of Spain and the Aztec Empire. This coincidental falls. It doesn't make it into my summary up here, but I remember, yeah, it says inarguable, so it falls. Right now, I need to take a moment to think about this concept. You see, they're both juggling some sort of sequence. This is saying that before the invasion by Spain, all these works were kind of involved in it. And this one is saying after the invasion, they added some stuff. So for this sequence, it did say this era. So I'm going to kick it back one sentence, especially since there's this nonetheless. I'm going to read the previous independent calls to try to extract some knowledge here. The marginal notes in it indicate that much of the collection's content predates the initial invasion. Nonetheless, so despite the fact that much of it predates, some of it kind of postdates, right? Some of it's after the invasion. Some of it being after the invasion, it's got to be the reference to this one, and it's got to be A for that reason. This is messing up, doesn't engage with the nonetheless, doesn't engage that we're dealing with some of the poems. This explains the continued efforts to have that. C falls. D is the right answer. Submit. Easy every single time.